All right. Well, welcome. This evening, it's this evening for us and it's morning for Shuli. That's why it's so dark in my office. Um, we are interviewing Shuli Huang from Taiwan. Shuli got his master's in regional planning 1980 and a PhD in city and regional planning from the University of Pennsylvania, USA. Prior to his retirement, he just said that he's retired about 2 years ago. He was Distinguished Professor of Graduate Institute of Urban Planning and the Director of the Center for Global Change and Sustainability Science at National Taipei University. He was also appointed Vice President of National Taipei University twice from 2005 to 2007, then again in 2010 to 2015. Shuli is a member of the Scientific Steering Committee of the Urbanization and Global Environmental Change Project, which was a project of the International Human Dimension Program. Are you still part of that, or is that sort of disbanded?
Well, that program has been stopped and it has changed to another urban CAN. It's
Okay.
related to Future Earth project.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the next thing, is that he is a member of Taiwan's National Committee on Future Earth. You've received numerous research awards, and I'm not going to go into them all, but Outstanding Research Award from the National Chung-Sing University, a Outstanding Research Award reward from the Taiwan National Science Council, a Fulbright Scholarship, and a planning medal from the Taiwan Institute of Urban Planning. And besides that, his research focus are ecological energetic analysis of urbanization, peri-urbanization, and environmental change, ecological land use planning, urban simulation, and urban sustainability assessment. And with that, welcome, Shuli. It's a pleasure to see old friends still hanging in there.
Thank you, Mark, for your invitation, and thanks for your introduction.
So we start these always with, so how did you wind up in Gainesville working with the HT?
Okay, because one of my PhD dissertation committee member is Jim Zucchetto. And I learned a lot from Jim's simulation modeling, but I think I still want to know more about energy analysis. So in 1988, I got a fellowship or something. I can have a 1 year sabbatical leave. So I wrote to Dr. Odum, ask him whether I can come to Gainesville to learn and do research with him. So that was the first time I was in Gainesville for 1 year.
Yes.
The second visit is because in 1994, that's because I had a grant and I invited Dr. Odum to join the research. It's about the energetic evolution of cities. So that's why I went back to Gainesville again for half a year in 1994.
94. So when you were in Gainesville the first time, did you stay in the apartment in HT's home, or did you have another place to live?
Actually, I only stayed with Dr. Odum for one night.
Oh, okay.
Then the second morning, maybe you forgot, you came to HC Odum's house to pick me up and take me to the apartment I rented.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot. So many people that he would invite international researchers would wind up staying with him at the little apartment that he had adjacent to his house. And, yes, but now that you mention it, I do remember that well, I don't really, but obviously I did. So what was it like to arrive here and having, to deal with HT? I mean, was it?
Well, I think Dr. Odum is really a very, very kind person. The first impression I have is that because it took me about 20 hours to fly from Taiwan to Gainesville, and the airplane was late. So when I arrived at Gainesville, it's something like midnight.
Yeah.
But Dr. Odum still went to airport to pick me up, wait there for maybe a couple hours or something. And I also remember in the airport, he made a phone call to Mark to remind you to come to the apartment to pick me or something.
Yeah, I was waiting by the phone.
Yeah.
That's back before way before cell phones too. So you had to get the call when it came through. That's funny. We had Jim on one of the podcasts earlier back in the spring, and he was at UPenn. And I guess maybe you could go back a little bit before you even got to Gainesville and what was going on at University of Pennsylvania, and how were you working with Jim Zucchetto, and what was going on there?
You mean how I work with Jim Zucchetto?
Yeah.
Okay, and my PhD dissertation mainly deal with water resource modeling. So after I took Jim's course on modeling or something, so I learned how to draw HT Odum's diagram and how to write a system equations. So that's why Jim Zucchetto was on my committee member to help me to do the water resource simulation for the case study I was studying. And Jim is really a very nice person, but unfortunately he had to leave University of Pennsylvania or something.
But
what was the case study?
And the case study is a watershed called Brandywine Watershed. It's very close to DuPont Company.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Delaware River or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your first exposure to energy systems diagrams and all of Odum.
Yes.
So then in '88, you did a 1-year sabbatical in Gainesville, or half a year, a whole year. So you sat in on
1988 to 89 for one whole year.
So you probably sat in on all of his graduate courses, systems ecology, and if he was teaching ecological economics or energy analysis.
Yes, whatever HT Odum's courses, when I was visiting, I just sit there and listen to his course. And I also sit on Mark Brown's ecological engineering, I remember.
Yeah, I took over the ecological engineering course from HT.
We haven't heard much about the heritage of the ecological engineering course. But to dig into that sometime.
Yeah.
So what was we like to hear like your first impressions when you meet Dr. O. You met him at the airport, but then you meet him again in the classroom, and sometimes they're two different people. He's one person outside of class, but then he's a different kind of character sometimes, and when he's in front of everybody.
Indeed, he is not only kind, but to my knowledge, I was very surprised. He is so knowledgeable, He seems to know everything from trees, animal, weather, or whatever. But he is very open-minded. I think that's very good thing for a senior to guide you, because he kept asking me what I wanted to do. And whatever I said, he just fully support. No objection.
He believes fully in maximizing power at the most human level.
Yes.
He's there to support you. Yeah. So what did you work on for your sabbatical? Were you just like learning, or were you developing some part of a project, or that's when you got the city project? I guess the idea started then, or did you came back for later?
My first visit is mainly learning, and Dr. Odum always wants you to do. Why don't you do an energy analysis of Taiwan or something? So I did. And after I've done that, so I also wrote an article, a journal paper, and together with Dr. Odum. So I think that was the first year. But after that, I think I just kept thinking about what I can do with energy analysis. That's come up with why I went there again for the second time.
How many years was it between the first time and the second time?
About 3 or 4 years, something like that. 4 years, yes.
And the second time was for another year?
No, only for half a year. That's when I got a Fulbright scholarship, and also the project just working with Dr. Odum, but mainly emphasize on the city and urban area, not the whole regional country scale.
Yeah. And then I think, didn't we come to Taiwan as part
Oh,
of that?
Yep. I forgot. And the first time I invited Dr. Odum to come to Taiwan is a very honorable invitation. So we provide some honorarium, and Dr. Odum also had a short course, 5 days, teaching in Taiwan. That's the first time. But then he also got a second time and a third time. And once Mark Brown was with Dr. Odum to Taiwan, I remember. Yes.
Yeah, that was my first time to Taiwan. And
Yes. And you forgot to sign the visa, apply for the visa.
that's right. I was in Thailand. That's right.
Yeah.
And I had a layover for a week, I think. And I thought, well, I'm that close. Maybe I'll go see Shuli. So I bought a ticket and I go to the airport and they say, where's your visa? Oh,
Did they let you in?
No. Oh, it was terrible.
This is the where you guys did the project. So this is where you did the energy analysis of the development of Taipei as well. That came out of, and you did the comparison to the Jacksonville study that they had done years before, right?
Yeah. And Dr. Odum's side, he had someone do the energy analysis of Jacksonville. Yeah. I remember I still got that report. And also with Dr. Odum's, and maybe some other people did a study with him. I remember, yeah.
So were they doing the Jacksonville study simultaneously, or they had done it in the past? I can't remember.
I think, I'm not quite sure, but the Jacksonville report is on that report I submitted to the foundation where I got a grant from.
Yeah. That was a beefy report, if I remember correctly. Very thick.
Reports are always that way.
Yeah, as many of the energy papers were. Well, you were there, so I started at Gainesville in the January of '94, and so we crossed paths at some point there in that year. You probably didn't. I was just a student though, so I don't know if we really interacted much. But I remember sitting in on all the classes.
At that time, Dr. Odum is already the director for the Center for Environmental Policy in the Black Hawk, not in Center for Wetland.
Right. And then that's when like people like David Scienceman, I think he was there that year.
Oh, David Scienceman was there when I first visited Gainesville. That was in 1988 or 89.
Oh, he's around for a while.
Yeah.
What was your impression of David Scienceman?
Very interesting people. But sometimes he has much confidence on what he proposed. But sometimes he just don't want to be in front of the people to defend what he's proposed.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Odum had him give a lecture once in like the ecological economics. One of the courses I've just gotten there. So maybe it was that spring or that fall. He made David Scienceman give one of his lectures, and I could tell he was very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it was probably, I think it was in the economics course, and he developed this lecture about the value of gold and silver, maybe, in energy. I don't know if you remember that or not, but can't remember the details, unfortunately.
At one point, he did The Ring, the opera, The Ring.
Oh yeah.
What's the? I can't remember.
Wagner's Ring Cycle.
Yeah.
I remember.
Diagrammed it and was calculating energy on it and everything else.
He always had the strangest diagrams because he's big into Freud as well. So he was always trying to model the Freud's terminology with the id and the. I never understood any of that. I didn't know any psychology.
No, it's pretty hard.
I thought, wow, this is great. I don't understand it, but.
So, can you remember the seminars, Shuli? And
yes, Center for Wetland. Yes, Wetland seminar. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean the system seminar on Thursday afternoons.
Yeah, in Center for Wetland.
I think we did them in the center. Yeah, at that time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When I was at Center for Wetland, I was there almost every week to hear people's presentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really nice.
Right. I think when people leave, that was the thing they often mentioned that they missed the most was the Thursday afternoon seminars that, you got to, everybody got together and we were making science, and that was so exciting, actually making.
That was very difficult to recreate anywhere else, I found.
Yeah, I
Without
kept
having
it
Dr.
going.
Odum at the center. I don't know how you survived all those years after he passed, but definitely a key component of system seminar.
Oh, he was. He was.
For sure.
They were
So
not.
Shuli, so did you take Emergy back to Taiwan and start introducing it to people there?
Yeah.
And tell us that
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
What happened?
Ever since I came back from my first visit with Dr. Odum, I had a course teaching environmental system. And basically the content of the course deals mainly with Dr. Odum's School of Systems Ecology, including simulation, system diagram, energy analysis. It's all Dr. Odum stuff. And about 80% of my academic research project and publication are all related to energy and simulation. Also, 80% of my PhD students, their dissertation also use energy as the main system approach for their research. Mark still remember that I even had 2 students went to Gainesville to stay there for 1 year or something. Yeah, and they are all doing great. They are all teaching in the university right now.
Great, good,
nice. So I mean, you must have. So you got a lot of traction then when you got back with Emergy. What was people's response in Taiwan to these ideas? I mean, they were well accepted, or
in the beginning, people really like it, but when I go out to present it, the story. Some environmental economists just don't agree with it. So that's why I try to concentrate on the urban study, because I'm more familiar with urban system, and the environmental economists cannot deal with that. So I use this to bypass their agreement.
Yeah, the economist. That's the whole story there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you really formulated that whole area of applying Emergy to the cities in the urban planning. I was looking at one of your papers earlier, you wrote recently about looking like the para-urban experience and using Emergy to look at the effect on what's going on in urbanization. So you can use Emergy to look at the effect that the city development's having on places basically that are supplying materials and services.
And right now I'm also helping my students using Emergy to deal with some issue related to global change, such as the ecosystem service or the co-benefits of the green infrastructure. Something like that. And they are all doing good. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think love to hear more about that, what kind of success they're having and how they're looking at those kind of issues. And hopefully will they make it to the Emergy conference in January in Gainesville?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be tough.
This is another story. Originally, I wanted to bring one of my PhD students to Gainesville this coming January. But because in October, I made a long trip to Canada. And after the trip, I had a severe problem of vertigo because of the long flight. So originally, I already booked the tickets to Gainesville, January. Then I had to cancel the trip because in the near future, I'm scared to death to take a long flight again. I think I have to wait and to recover, then I can take another flight.
Right.
And they already submitted the abstract. I think they would, if it's possible, they would do on the website or internet to participate in the program. Yeah.
You have to be there virtually. That'd be good.
Yes.
Nice
We
to have
have,
your contribution.
we have about 10 or 12 virtual presentations.
Oh, oh,
We'll do them first thing in the morning like we did last time, so that people from your side of the planet it won't be too inconvenient for them. So
yeah, they can do that before they go to bed.
So any thoughts or remembrances of HT, his teaching style and the way he interacted with the students and
Oh,
interacted even with you,
yeah, yeah. I think I was greatly influenced by H.T. Odum's guide to how should I look at the issue, the problem. And the thing I remember most is when I visited Dr. Odum for the second time, and Dr. Odum was helping me to formulate an urban zonation model, something like the city, the whole metropolitan area is divided into natural area, agricultural area, industrial district, residential, and urban center, something like that, 5 different zones. And when HTO them draw the diagram for me, there will be land converted from natural area to agricultural area, then to urban center. In addition to that, also has arrow from urban center back to agriculture, agriculture back to natural area. That's something I cannot understand in the beginning because I'm an urban planner. All I have seen is all the natural area has been cleared, become agriculture. Agricultural area has been converted to residential. I've never seen the backward conversion. And when Dr. Odom realized this, he told me that although you haven't seen that happen, but the process is happening. That's because humans spend a lot of energy try to stop it, put him back. And the most interesting thing, he even took me to his house in Gainesville. And in front of the driveway, he showed me it's all covered with like a natural area. And he used his finger to dig into the ground to let me know that the asphalt or the cement was there. The reason why it's becoming the natural area is because he never cleaned the fallen leaf, so it's becoming return to nature. Wow, I think this is amazing. A very good example to let me know the process is still going on.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys did like a simulation model of that, right? Because you had land.
Yes.
The land was, I remember that model because that's the first time you think about land as actually being cycled as almost like a material. It's going through all these stages. Where it is in the cycle affects all the development and the empower. Yeah. That was a neat model.
And all the concept is all because of Dr. Odom. He just keep reminding you something you haven't think about.
For sure. Yeah.
I think it's so powerful to, looking at he's really thinking from an ecological, the ecosystems standpoint on everything. And you saw the city is just another manifestation of a bigger ecosystem. I was wondering did you ever apply it outside of the city in other kinds of realms when you were doing work, or?
I did some application in the agricultural area, but it's also related to urban system. Peri-urban area, they have some agriculture. So I just include the natural area, agricultural area, and urban area all together to see how they contribute to each other to maximize empower, something like that.
Did you have the books translated into Taiwanese or to Mandarin?
Yes. I have a book mainly deal with the H.T. Odom's system ecology on the urban area. Yes, I had a book. Yeah.
So you wrote your own book based on his. You didn't like translate systems ecology or anything.
It's not translated. It's not translated from. It's too much work. A lot of work.
Wasn't there a version of systems ecology that was in Mandarin? Did somebody do that? One of the Chinese professors?
I think there is one maybe in mainland China. Dr. Odom showed it to me when I was there, but I don't know whether that book has ever been published.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the publication system in China is very different from the rest
Yeah.
of the world.
Uh-huh.
The author has
That's
to pay the publisher printing company to print the book.
Oh yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
What was the guy that came from China, Pei Li? Was that his name?
Oh no, and Xianbang Lan.
Xingfang. Yeah, okay.
That's the first Chinese scholar visit Dr. Odum in
And then
1989 too. Yeah,
And then Mao Chao.
Also after you.
yeah.
Ah, yeah. Did you have much relationship with any of the Chinese energy scientists? I mean, it seemed to me the last 20 years has just been this explosion of energy papers. And when I look at where they're coming from, there's a huge number that come from the mainland.
Actually, some of the Chinese scholars I connect with them is mainly because of Dr. Odum. Because when Dr. Odum came to Taiwan in 1990 or something, and when the Chinese scholar knows he is coming to Asia, so they invited him to mainland China to visit for 1 or 2 weeks. And I was there with Dr. Odum because Dr. Odum at that time cannot understand Chinese system works. So Dr. Odum insists that I should go with him. So I was there. And because of that, I know some Chinese scholar and we made good friends. Yeah, yes.
Uh-huh. Did you go to Beijing, or this was in South China, or because there's a couple of groups
Beijing,
now?
no, South China first, Guangzhou, Beijing,
Guangzhou.
then Shenyang. That's on the northeast.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Odum went to these 3 places. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's amazing to see the the impact he's had around the world.
Yeah.
So you spent 2 years here, and then you took all of his courses.
Well, just studying, not really.
Yeah.
Didn't get any credit. Yeah.
Do you remember the tests he used to give where everybody had to get out in the hallway and walk up and down the hallway? He called them a cafeteria style test.
Oh no, that's something I didn't have.
Yeah. There was this. He would put up pictures and it would be something, 2 totally different systems, and he'd say, try to describe how they're different or how they're the same, and it would be, one would be an ocean and the other would be the Arctic, and you have to figure out what's a commonality between the 2 of them. And they were always incredibly thought-provoking. I mean, you had to really think on his tests.
Yeah. And his exam sheet, really interesting.
Yeah.
Very dynamic, very interesting. It's not something you can remember or read a book to answer it.
Exactly.
Yes.
One of the questions we like to ask is if Dr. Odum was still around, are there like questions that you would love to ask him? I don't know if you're sitting there and think about, oh man, I wish I could ask him, XYZ or something.
I mean, what kind of question I would like to ask him?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been 22 years, but may have given up on thinking about that.
Maybe I'll get back to this. I'll think about it a little bit. Because I never thought about this. Yeah.
Maybe get stuck on a problem in your urban modeling or energy questions around energy and how to do some of the the calculations or how ways to think about it. No.
Yeah.
No, we can. That's okay.
I've always for the last 5 or 6 years, it's bothered me that in the simulations, we multiply the inputs. You multiply sun times rain times nutrients, and you get now biomass.
Yeah.
But if you can express those in energy terms, then you can't multiply them because they're logs,
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I thought about was using a Cobb-Douglas function for the production. And there, the log part becomes the exponent in the Cobb-Douglas thing. And I would love to chat with him and work on that. I think that it's a real fruitful area of energy to bring energy in to the simulations. I mean, we simulate models and generate transformities and generate energy out of the model, but we don't use energy as the inputs. You know, it winds up being other stuff. So anyway.
Yeah. I thought about this question, and I know for the book Modeling for All Scale, Dr. Odum did have a 1 page or something telling people how we can use energy to do the simulation. I think it's a totally different concept. So I thought about that, but I never got a chance because some students don't want to do that because that takes too much effort. I thought about maybe we can do the simulation, and for each step, the simulated result can do another energy calculation, something that transformative will keep changing, so the input source of energy will be different. So I thought about maybe having another module to take care of the energy besides the regular simulation, but I never got a chance to do that.
Right. You need another sabbatical.
And whenever I submit paper on simulation to the journal, I always been challenged by whether I can compare the simulated result with the historical result. And you know, that's very difficult. Try to get away from it.
Yeah.
Try to tell them that that's for policy, what if analysis, not for prediction. But they just don't care. They think you should predict it very correct.
Right. Yeah. He was a big believer in macroscopic mini models, that
Yes.
they were to test your theories, not to predict the future, just to test your theories.
Yes.
So you taught for a long time and you taught energy. How did the students accept it? I mean, were they as excited as you were, or was it not quite so?
In the beginning, there were many students who were interested with that, but it's getting less and less.
And why do you think that's the case?
Only the students doing energy analysis with me as their master thesis or PhD dissertation will take the course. But most of the other people would, because my course require exam and homework, as Dr. Odum did. So people just scare away.
Really? Man, I sort of found that in the latter part of my teaching career is that the students weren't as interested, and I kept trying to understand, what was going on. So much now seems to be climate change. Everybody's concerned about climate change, and there's not much you can do about it. So, and there's not a lot of theory there. So I don't know. Anyway, things have changed. How about you, David? Do you feel the same way? Are students less interested?
Yeah, I think the quantitative part of the simulation modeling throws most students off. I mean, I'm in an environmental science department, so it's a little different from being in an engineering department. And maybe Shuli, maybe you found the same thing in in planning. The quantitative skills just aren't there usually, and so it's pretty rare to find a student that gravitates towards the math part of it. But the energy part they're always interested in, and they grasp that pretty quickly, and they seem to appreciate that. And then usually these days there's so many other kind of not similar, but analogous approaches like ecological footprint, carbon footprint, life cycle assessment, that the most people understand the whole kind of systems approach, I think, and can really appreciate the power of it. But they've come at it from a different perspective sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So energy is just kind of one of the different tools they would think of, but We know that a lot of those kind of emerged after the fact and probably stem from a lot of the early work of Dr. Odum, if you go far enough back.
Yeah.
But there are always some people interested with energy. This coming Thursday, I'm going to be an oral examiner for Tom Abel's student. You know, Tom Abel in Eastern Taiwan. And he has a student. I think she already got a master or PhD from somewhere else and now just interested with energy. So she is using energy to compare electric vehicle with the regular fuel combustion vehicle. Try to see the difference using energy. That's very nice.
Yeah.
There was a paper, somebody did a paper on that not too long ago. I used it in my class where they looked at a Tesla versus a gasoline powered car. I can't remember. Was it a European group that did it? Maybe, I don't know, Mark, were you involved in that? Do you know that?
No.
You've seen that paper?
Was it
It was
an
pretty
energy?
good.
Was
it was
an
an energy paper. It was very thorough, but they compared, I think they did like a carbon analysis with it as well. It's probably like, I'd say less than 5 years old at this point.
So do you see Tom Abel often?
Not really, because Tom Abel also retired, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And several months ago, he came to Taipei, so I just showed him around, and I was so surprised. He showed them the Hualien, I mean the city he stayed. He just stayed with the kids and his wife in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to get him to get him an interview with him. He's had difficulties. He's been real busy, so we haven't quite shown it up. But he may be the next person to be interviewed.
He should be okay. I'll tell him that Thursday. I'll meet him Thursday. Yeah. This Thursday.
Yeah, you tell him that he needs to clear his calendar so that we can chat.
Yeah.
So Shuli, did you work with any or collaborate with any of the other people in Gainesville? I mean, like there's a school of architecture and those folks over there when you were, or was it just you focused on Dr. Odum? Yeah.
No, only Dr. Odum, and also interact with Mark Brown and Dan Campbell. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Oh, so you worked some with Dan?
Not really work with them, but we always have some communication. And he has been to Taiwan once, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He always worked with Hong Fang Lu.
Yeah.
Right. She's still at South China Botanical Garden, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
We should do it. That'd be a good interview to talk to Hong Fang Lu.
Yeah, she's
been around a long time.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I had one of her PhD students here. That's probably been like 10 years ago or more now. She stayed with me for like maybe 6 months or a year. I forget now. But very productive.
Yep.
Any other thoughts about HT and his his influence on you, or interesting little tidbits that you can recall from?
Yeah, I think Dr. Odum, one of the very significant point is that he always reminds people, including me, that we should look at the issue or problem from the macro perspective, not from the micro. I think that's very important. And he always said that you should look at the hierarchy above the system you are looking at. So I use this as an example to tell my student that, well, if you are not doing good, it's not your problem. It's the problem from the department. And I think that's very true, And
yeah, we used to always say, look to the next larger system. If you want to understand something, you have to go bigger.
And also in Taiwan, we got lots of typhoon, maybe more hurricane in Florida, Something like this year, we already have 3 or 4 typhoons. And originally, we always think of typhoon as causing disaster or losing life and property. But Dr. Odum just reminds that the typhoon bringing a lot of renewable energy, wind and rain. Yeah, that's very true, because in Taiwan, we are an island. We always have to rely on the water from the typhoon. Otherwise, there will be drought.
Right.
Really make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Hurricane Andrew in South Florida where um, he said something to the effect, well, just watch how much how much order that disorder will attract. And,
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
it
yes.
does, disorder attracts incredible amounts of ordering energy. And the federal government opens up all of this money and people come roaring in from all over the country to rebuild structures and so forth.
Mhm.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I remember I also used this concept to do vulnerability assessment related to extreme weather or climate change
Oh,
using
yeah.
energy analysis. And that's really very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
that vulnerability analysis. I think you asked me to help review a paper of yours.
Oh, did you do that?
I think so.
Good, thanks.
Always liked how Dr. Odom, he loved to calculate the transformities of like hurricanes and weather systems.
Yeah.
Once I had calculated the transformity of lightning, because there's so much light, there's like the Lightning Research Center in Gainesville, and of course Florida attracts a lot of the lightning. And I'd done it like a little side project, maybe for class or something. And then like months later, he remembered that I had done that. And of course I had like lost the work I had done. He was so disappointed that I had forgotten what I'd done. Oh, he wanted to know what the transformity of lightning was.
I remember one time in Rome with Sergio, we were going to St. Peter's with my daughters because the Pope was going to appear. We were going to see the Pope. And on the way to the St. Peter's, he and I were trying to calculate the transformity of the Pope. And the daughters are going, what are they doing? These scientists, what are they doing? We're just trying to figure out how important the Pope is.
A lot of historical imagery there.
Oh boy.
A lot of accumulation. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, can I go back to the previous question David asked about if Dr. Odom is still around? What kind of question I want to ask him?
Yeah,
sure.
The question I have is about the changing some of the terminology or even the calculation of transformity. Something like right now it's called unit energy value, and also has different global baseline for calculating the transformity. And I really like to ask Dr. Odom how he feel about all this changing. Because I know some people cannot understand why transformity has changed so much, just lose the track. And so I really want to ask Dr. Odom how you feel about this concept and calculation has been changing so much. Is that good or bad for the whole study?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
What do you think he'd say? Any ideas on what? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Well, there must have been a similar struggle. I mean, I know there's a history to the word emergy that is pretty convoluted that we've probably talked about this before, but yeah, that probably is because emergy was already decided as a term by the time you showed up in '88, right?
That's just announced yet by David Scienceman.
Yeah.
But whenever I participated conference, I heard some people saying something. They are objecting the word energy. I remember an energy scientist, Berkeley Smith. Do you remember him? Yeah. He told me that he respects Dr. Odom's work so much, but once embodied energy has been changed to energy, he said, then I stopped write the energy paper. I don't know why they have so much objection on this terminology. I really don't.
For what it's worth, he once told me he didn't like models either. So he thumbed his nose at modeling.
He was a calculator boy. I mean, he calculated everything under
He had to
the
stay in the algebra realm. Couldn't get into more things sophisticated.
Yeah, but Odom, actually, while he was still alive, I think he went through 3 different baselines before he passed away.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, I mean, he was doing it himself, and I think we tried to do it one more time. And I hope this is the last and won't ever change again, but you never know. Somebody's liable to decide that we need to include cosmic energy in there somehow or something and change
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah. Mhm. You see, exergy people also disappear. I haven't seen people doing exergy for quite a long time.
Yeah. Well, it
So,
has its drawbacks. It's very difficult to calculate exergy of anything other than, steam engines and power
yeah,
plants and stuff like that.
they all used to fight so much, whether
Oh, yeah.
exergy or energy.
I can remember the very first conferences that Sergio had in Italy, and
Uh-huh.
getting into these very heated arguments with the exergy people. They were just,
Yes. I
oh man,
remember that
in my
too.
face. They're just really in my face. They wouldn't argue with him. They would wait until he leave the room, and then they'd come up and get in my face. And so, why don't you talk to him? They wouldn't do it.
But I'm glad energy still survive and still somebody's using it to do the research. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. You need
Yeah, I mean, in the
no,
'90s, you would have never thought. Sorry, Mark. I was just
it's
following
okay.
up on
Go
that
ahead.
idea, but I mean, when I was a student and graduating in the '90s, I just never thought that energy was really going to make it because it was so difficult. It seemed like to get something published about
Mhm.
energy back then, and
Mhm.
I mean, the way that's changed in the last 20 years is incredible. And just
Yes.
and the fact that there's so many like ideas that are built off the same kind of principle is, I think, a strong testament to his thinking is very universal, right? Whether or not people recognize it as energy or some other kind of systems
Mhm.
counting.
I always told my student that energy is not just a technique or approach. I think it's a whole school of energy. The source
Mhm.
of energy. It's a school. It's
Yeah.
not just a method or technique.
Mhm.
And I always think that many of the junior scientists doing the energy analysis, because I have reviewed many papers, they just don't draw the system diagram first.
I
They
know.
they use energy as a cookbook to cook something. Yeah, that's the real problem.
You got to have that diagram.
Yeah.
This is good.
Any
Well,
other thoughts, Shuli?
Yes.
any final thoughts?
Let me see. Yeah, I really would like to, if there's any suggestion for the young scientists, in addition to drawing the diagram for the macro perspective, I would highly recommend they should collect Dr. Odum's book or reports, because all the treasure is in those reports or books. You'll find something interesting and apply it to the question you are trying to study or the problem you are trying to resolve. There is a significant amount of treasure inside Dr. Odum's previous writing. It really can give you a lot of new thinking or new approach. And just try not to copy the energy technique step by step. Just think about it in the beginning, why you want to use energy, then you can go for it.
Yeah.
Some people don't know why they want to use energy. Maybe because their advisor asked him to do that. They should really think about it.
I probably get, I don't know, one email or one every month or every 2 months. Some young scientist somewhere has found energy and wants to do an analysis and wants some help doing it. And that gives me heart. That gives me maybe there's still enough of interest out there in the world that we'll continue with it. But
Yeah, try to let the people who can help them. Some people are really experienced, like you, Sergio, or whoever. I'm sure people are willing to help those young people to do the energy analysis.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
I think you're
mentioned
right. There's Oh, go ahead,
Go
Mark.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that the gray literature, the Odum gray literature, all the reports. I mean, I know
Yes.
most people refer to environmental accounting because it's probably the most accessible in the newer version of Emergy. But those reports, I mean, I don't know how many reports he published per year in that time span, but they're just filled with diagrams and thinking, and a lot of novelty in the reports that is unfortunately probably not as accessible. Tougher to get to those.
Well, at one time, Cheryl Lynn was digitizing everything and trying to create a digital collection of his work. I should contact her and find out. It was with the library, so it was going to be as part of a library project, and find out what happened to that. The whole idea was to get all of that up on the web for people to access.
Maybe those reports can Xerox into PDF file and put it on the Energy Society website for people to look at it. That should be very valuable, especially all the appendix, how HCO do the calculation that people want to know.
Yeah. There was always a lot of mystery in some of those calculations, like how they're so convoluted when you first look at them sometimes, but it makes sense.
But the knowledge he had, I mean, he could do back of the envelope calculation on anything and be within an order of magnitude, of the correct answer if you were to take time and really collect the data to do it. You just throw out numbers. What's the GPP of a swamp forest? Oh, it's 4 grams carbon per meter square per day. Where did that come from? Yeah, the stuff that he had were unbelievable.
Yep.
The other thing you mentioned, the reports, and the thing that I think is the most profound thing that he ever did was systems ecology, his big book.
Yes.
I pick it up and just open it up someplace and start reading, and it just blows my mind. His writing style is just so, I mean, it grabs you and you just become, it's amazing the way his mind worked and the way he put his sentences together. In a way, sometimes it was almost poetry, it was just amazing stuff. Students
that book could be something like a dictionary or handbook or something. When you think of something, you can try to look at the answer, but not try to read it from the first page to the last page. It's impossible.
It's not a novel.
Yeah,
I always felt like every section was like a potential dissertation topic. That's how I always felt about it.
Yeah.
Some of the topics were so, he's just scratching the surface and just pulling it all the systems together.
Well, this has been delightful, Shuli. You have anything else to say?
Oh, no, I just suggest that you should really try to organize or something. Try to let the young scientists know that if they want to do energy analysis, there are always people willing to help them and give them guidance to the correct way of doing the energy synthesis. And the energy can really apply to so many different problems.
Yeah.
So I think young scientists should really understand this potential of energy synthesis. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good words.
That's great words. Good way to end the conversation. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for agreeing.
Yeah, nice to meet you, and Mark and David, and thanks for the invitation. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. If there's anything I should support, just let me know.
I'm sad that you won't be here this year, but I fully understand, but maybe this summer on my way to China or on my way back, I'll swing by Taiwan.
Come to Taiwan. Once you arrive Taiwan, everything will be on me.
Okay. I will get a visa this time.
And now you don't need visa. Now
I don't need one?
No, you don't need one now. No. The relationship has been changed.
So even if I'm coming from mainland China, I don't need one to get.
No, you don't. Yeah. You don't need to
Okay.
apply for visa. Yeah, it's easy.
Well, I will make a point to try and come this year.
Okay. Yeah.
All
Just
right.
let me know beforehand. Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, David. Good to see your face. Hope everything is all right.
Thank you,
That's
Mark.
good.
Thank you, David. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good
ciao.
day. All right. Bye
You
bye.
too. Yeah.
Bye.